Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to start our journey into macroeconomics today. This first slide introduces our topic with the title, Introduction to Macroeconomics. We'll be exploring the fundamental concepts that shape the economy on a large scale. Over the next few slides, we'll cover key ideas, trends, and tools that help us understand how economies grow, fluctuate, and interact. I look forward to guiding you through this fascinating subject. Let's get started. Let's begin by understanding the significance of the circular flow model. This model helps us visualize how income and expenditures move through an economy, highlighting the interconnectedness of different sectors. It's essential because it shows us the real flow of goods and services alongside the money flow, giving us a complete picture of economic activity. Now, you might wonder why we need a separate theory of macroeconomics. Well, traditional microeconomic theories focus on individual markets and firms, but macroeconomics looks at the economy as a whole. It helps us analyze aggregate phenomena like national income, unemployment, and inflation. The importance of macroeconomics becomes clear when we consider historical events like the Great Depression. That catastrophic downturn underscored the need for a broader understanding of economic fluctuations and policy intervention. So, why study macroeconomics? Because understanding these large-scale trends and shocks allows policymakers to make informed decisions that stabilize the economy and promote growth. Let's look at the circular flow of income in a simple two-sector economy, which includes households and firms. Money and real flows circulate between these sectors, illustrating how income is generated and spent. But real flows alone don't tell the whole story. The importance of macroeconomics also lies in adding the money flow to this model, giving us a more comprehensive view of the economy's functioning. Now, the roots of macroeconomics trace back to early economic thought, where scholars began analyzing the economy at a macro level, beyond individual markets. Understanding the components of the macroeconomy, such as aggregate demand, aggregate supply, fiscal policy, and monetary policy, helps us grasp these complex interactions. Again, the reason we study macroeconomics is to comprehend the big picture, how overall economic activity is driven, and how policies can influence growth and stability. The circular flow of income can be expanded beyond two sectors to include government, foreign trade, and financial markets, forming a three-sector or even a four-sector model. The circular flow of income model remains central because it simplifies complex economic relationships into understandable flows, making it easier to analyze economic health. Its roots lie in early economic theories that attempted to explain how economies operate at a macro level, laying the groundwork for modern macroeconomic analysis. So, in summary, what is macroeconomics? It's the study of the economy as a whole, looking at total output, employment, inflation, and government policies, giving us insights into how to manage economic stability and growth. Let's start by exploring what macroeconomics is all about. The key idea here is aggregate behavior, which refers to the actions of all households and firms combined. Instead of focusing on individual decisions, macroeconomics looks at the big picture, how the entire economy functions as a whole. This includes examining various aggregates like total income, overall consumption, investment levels, and the general price level. These are the main indicators that help us understand the health and direction of the economy. By analyzing these aggregates, we can see broader trends and make informed decisions or policies. For example, if aggregate income is rising, it often means economic growth. On the other hand, if prices are rising rapidly, it might signal inflation. Now, it's important to distinguish macroeconomics from microeconomics. Microeconomics zooms in on individual decision-makers, like households and firms, focusing on their specific choices and behaviors. But macroeconomics takes a step back to see how all these individual actions combine and influence the economy as a whole. So, in essence, macroeconomics helps us understand the big picture, how the entire economy behaves. By looking at these key aggregates, which are vital for developing economic policies and understanding overall economic health. When we study the consumption behavior or equilibrium of a consumer, or the production pattern and equilibrium of a firm, we're dealing with what we call microanalysis. This means we focus on individual units, like a single consumer or a single firm, and understand how they make decisions, how they behave, and how they reach equilibrium. It's all about zooming in on specific parts of the economy rather than the whole. And that's an important distinction because, in microeconomics, we're not looking at the entire economic system at once. Instead, we're analyzing how individual players operate within that system. This helps us understand the smaller, detailed interactions that, when combined, shape the overall economy. Now, moving on to what is macroeconomics, this is the other side of the coin. While microeconomics zooms in on individual units, macroeconomics looks at the entire economy as a whole. It's about big-picture concepts like national income, inflation, unemployment, and economic growth. So essentially, macroeconomic studies aggregate indicators and the overall functioning of the economy, rather than focusing on the decision-making of individual consumers or firms. It helps policymakers understand the broader trends and craft strategies to promote stability and growth. Connecting back to our overall theme, understanding both micro and macro aspects gives us a comprehensive view of how economies operate, from the smallest units to the entire system. Businesses can gain or lose significant amounts of money depending on how the economic environment changes. It doesn't matter how well they are managed. External factors can have a major impact. When we look at the economic well-being of consumers, whether they are wealthy or struggling, it's also influenced by movements in interest rates, exchange rates, inflation, and other economic indicators. These factors can affect everything from prices to purchasing power. So, why do we study macroeconomics? Well, understanding these broad economic forces helps us see the bigger picture, how policies and global trends influence everyday life and business decisions. It's essential for making informed choices and adapting to economic changes effectively. This overall understanding ties directly into our broader theme of how interconnected our economy really is. Macroeconomics is relevant to voters who wonder what their governments are up to. It helps us understand the broader economic policies and decisions that impact our everyday lives. Being prepared for such changes in fortunes can have considerable value, because when we understand how the economy works, we can better anticipate and respond to shifts in employment, prices, and growth. More generally, studying macroeconomics makes us all better citizens. It enables us to grasp the complex challenges that our societies face, from inflation to unemployment, and to participate more meaningfully in discussions about our economic future. This is why it's so important to learn about macroeconomics, not just for personal knowledge, but for actively engaging in the civic life that shapes our communities and nations. These extreme situations can really threaten the social fabric of a society, causing division and instability. But the good news is that many of these crises can be prevented. When policymakers apply sound economic principles, they can help stabilize the economy and avoid the worst outcomes. Studying macroeconomics is essential because it guides governments in making informed decisions to prevent devastating events like depressions and hyperinflations, which have plagued modern industrial societies in the past. Understanding these principles helps us see how economic policies can promote stability and growth. This is why learning macroeconomics is so important. It equips us with the tools to foster a healthier, more resilient economy for everyone. The need for a separate study of macroeconomics was actually felt by John Maynard Keynes himself during the time of the Great Depression in 1929. When he was trying to understand and analyze that severe economic downturn, he realized that the traditional approach wasn't enough. Before Keynes published his famous general theory, the distinction between micro and macroeconomic issues simply did not exist. Economists didn't really differentiate between individual markets and the economy as a whole. It was only with Keynes' work that the field of macroeconomics was formally established, giving us a new way to look at the economy on a broader scale. This development was crucial because it allowed us to better understand the aggregate phenomena like national income, unemployment, and inflation, which are central to the overall economic health. So, the roots of macroeconomics are deeply tied to Keynes' insights during a time of crisis, shaping the way we analyze economic issues today. The Great Depression was a period of severe economic contraction and high unemployment that began in 1929 and continued throughout the 1930s. This was a time when economies around the world shrank dramatically and millions of people lost their jobs. It's a pivotal event that really shaped how we understand macroeconomics today. The scale of the economic decline and the widespread hardship led economists to ask fundamental questions about how economies function and what can be done to prevent such a disaster in the future. So, as we explore the roots of macroeconomics, keep in mind how the Great Depression highlighted the need for a better understanding of overall economic health and policy tools. As the economy started to decline, we saw a sharp drop in world trade, which triggered economic retaliation among countries. This created a vicious cycle that made the situation even worse. Businesses began to halt production because there was not enough demand, and as a result, many had to lay off workers. In fact, unemployment soared to around 25%, leaving millions without jobs and income. Banks that managed to survive the initial shocks also stopped lending money, which meant less credit for businesses and consumers alike. This lack of credit further stifled economic activity. One of the policies that worsened the situation was the Hawley-Smoot tariff imposed in 1930, which increased tariffs on imports. While meant to protect domestic industries, it actually reduced international trade even more. At the same time, inventories started piling up because goods couldn't be sold, leading to excess supplies. Many banks faced failure. About 9,000 of them filed for bankruptcy, further shaking consumer and investor confidence. With less money circulating, purchasing power declined significantly, so people simply had less money to spend. This decrease in spending hurt businesses on a broader scale. All these factors contributed to the infamous stock market crash, which marked a key point in the Great Depression. This slide really highlights how interconnected these events were, how a decline in trade and poor policy decisions created a cascade of economic failures, leading to one of the most challenging periods in modern history. So, even though these classical models provided a solid foundation for understanding the economy, they actually failed to explain one of the biggest puzzles of their time: the prolonged high unemployment during the Great Depression. This was a real eye-opener, and it pushed economists to rethink some of their basic assumptions. It became clear that existing theories couldn't fully account for such a severe and persistent downturn. This gap in understanding was a major catalyst for the development of macroeconomics as a distinct field. Economists started asking new questions about how the entire economy functions, especially during times of crisis. Now, before Keynes' ideas came along, the dominant economic theory was what we call the pre-Keynesian era. It held that the economy typically stays at full employment, that resources are fully utilized most of the time. If there's any deviation from this full employment level, it was considered only temporary, and the economy would naturally correct itself pretty quickly. This belief was quite optimistic, but as we saw during the Great Depression, it didn't always hold true. That's why the development of macroeconomics was so important. It helped us understand that economies can be stuck in prolonged periods of unemployment, and that sometimes active policy measures are needed to help get things back on track. During periods of low private demand, the government has the ability to stimulate aggregate demand, which can help lift the economy out of a recession. This idea is rooted in the belief that government intervention can play a crucial role in stabilizing economic activity. Keynes believed that governments could actively intervene in the economy and influence the level of both output and employment. This was a significant shift from previous ideas that markets always self-corrected quickly. In 1936, John Maynard Keynes published his groundbreaking book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money, where he laid out these concepts in detail. This marked the beginning of what we now call macroeconomics, highlighting how government policies can be essential tools for managing economic fluctuations and promoting growth. Now, when we look at macroeconomic variables like total income, total output, employment, and the general price level, we get a clearer picture of how the economy is functioning. These indicators are essential because they help us gauge the overall health and stability of the economy. For instance, total income and total output tell us about the economic activity happening within a country. Higher values typically suggest a prosperous economy, while lower values might indicate slowdown or trouble. Employment levels give us insight into how many people are working and earning, which directly impacts overall economic well-being. And then, the general price level reflects inflation or deflation trends, influencing purchasing power and cost of living. By analyzing these variables together, we can better understand the underlying forces at play. This is why macroeconomics is so important. It helps policymakers, businesses, and individuals make informed decisions. It connects to our overall theme of understanding economic functioning, guiding us in shaping policies that promote growth and stability. Now, moving on to slide 14, let's talk about the role of GDP analysis. As a key macroeconomic variable, GDP helps us understand the overall health of an economy. When we analyze GDP, we're essentially looking at the total value of goods and services produced within a country over a specific period. This gives us a snapshot of economic activity. By examining changes in GDP, we can gauge whether the economy is expanding or contracting, which is crucial for making informed decisions. So, in essence, GDP analysis provides a foundation for commenting on the condition of the economy, making it an indispensable tool in macroeconomics. This ties directly into the overall theme of understanding economic indicators and their importance for policy and business strategy. Now, moving on to slide 15, let's focus on the importance of macroeconomics. One key aspect is how national income data helps us predict the overall level of economic activity. By analyzing this data, we can get a sense of whether the economy is expanding or contracting. Additionally, it helps us understand how income is distributed among different groups within the economy. This is crucial because it shows us who benefits the most and who might need support. For example, when we look at unemployment, especially general unemployment, macroeconomic studies give us insights into its causes and potential solutions. Understanding these factors allows policymakers to craft strategies that promote stability and growth. Ultimately, macroeconomics helps us tackle complex economic problems in modern times by providing a clearer picture of the big picture. So, it's not just about numbers. It's about understanding the economy as a whole and making informed decisions. When we talk about monetary problems, one key issue is how frequent changes in the value of money can negatively impact the economy. When the value of money fluctuates unpredictably, it creates uncertainty for consumers and businesses alike, making it harder to plan for the future. This instability can lead to decreased investments and slower economic growth. On the other hand, when we focus on economic growth, it's essential to evaluate macroeconomic variables such as income, output, and employment. These indicators help us understand the overall health of the economy and guide us in planning strategies for sustainable growth. By monitoring these variables, policymakers can make informed decisions to foster stability and prosperity. So, in essence, understanding these macroeconomic factors and managing monetary stability are crucial for maintaining a healthy economy and supporting long-term growth. They are interconnected parts of the bigger picture we're exploring in macroeconomics. In business cycles, macroeconomics really started to take shape only after the Great Depression. This was a pivotal moment because it highlighted how important it is to understand the causes of economic fluctuations. By studying these cycles, we can better grasp why economies expand and contract over time. The key point here is that macroeconomics isn't just about theory. It's about finding ways to stabilize the economy and prevent severe downturns. Its importance lies in analyzing what triggers these fluctuations and in developing policies or remedies to help smooth out the bumps in the economic road. So, in essence, macroeconomics plays a crucial role in helping us navigate the unpredictable nature of economic activity and ensuring stability for individuals, businesses, and governments alike. Let's explore why we need a separate theory of macroeconomics. When we look at phenomena like crowd behavior, unemployment problems, or the paradox of thrift, we're dealing with issues that emerge only when we consider the economy as a whole. This is where the fallacy of composition comes into play, the mistaken idea that what's true for individual parts must necessarily be true for the entire system. Understanding the behavior of an aggregate system requires a different approach. It's not enough to simply sum up individual actions. We need a broader framework, a separate theory that can explain these collective phenomena. That's what macroeconomics provides, a way to analyze and understand the economy on a large scale, capturing the dynamics that aren't visible when focusing solely on individual components. So, in essence, the complexity and unique characteristics of the economy as a whole demand their own set of principles and models, separate from microeconomic analysis. This is why macroeconomics is essential for a comprehensive understanding of economic behavior at the national or global level. Now, let's take a closer look at the circular flow of income model. This model is essentially a way to understand how an economy functions as a whole. It shows the continuous movement of money, goods, and services between different sectors of the economy. Think of it as a cycle where households and firms interact repeatedly. Households provide factors of production like labor to firms, and in return, they receive income. They then use this income to purchase goods and services from firms. On the other side, firms produce these goods and services, which are sold to households and other sectors. This ongoing flow keeps the economy moving. The model highlights the importance of both households and firms and how their interactions create the economic activity we see every day. By understanding this flow, we can better grasp how different policies or shocks might impact the overall economy. It's a fundamental concept that connects all parts of our macroeconomic system and helps us see the bigger picture. Let's take a closer look at the factor services involved in production. First, we have households, which are the primary providers of factors of production like labor, land, and capital. These households supply these resources to firms, which are the businesses producing goods and services. In return, firms pay households for their factor services, such as wages, rent, and interest. This exchange forms the basis of the production process. Next, these firms use the factors they acquire to produce goods for consumption. These products are then sold to households, completing the cycle. This entire process is a core part of the circular flow of income, specifically in a two-sector economy, which focuses only on households and firms. Understanding this flow helps us see how income is generated and circulated within an economy, emphasizing the interconnectedness between households and firms. It also highlights the importance of factor services as the starting point of economic activity, linking production directly to income and expenditure. This is a fundamental concept that underpins the entire economic system we're exploring today. Let's take a closer look at slide 21, which illustrates the circular flow of income in a two-sector economy. Here, we see the key components involved. At the core, households are shown as the consumers and providers of factor services. They supply factors like labor, land, and capital to firms, which is represented by the arrow labeled factor services for production. In return, firms pay households factor payments, which include wages, rent, interest, and profits. These payments are the income that households earn from providing their factors of production. Households then use this income to purchase goods for consumption, indicated by the arrow labeled consumption expenditure. This creates a flow of money from households back to firms, completing the cycle. On the other side, firms produce goods and services that households buy, fueling the economy. This cycle, real flow of goods and services and money flow of payments, is fundamental in understanding how income circulates within an economy. It highlights the interconnectedness of households and firms and how their exchanges sustain economic activity. Remember, this simplified model shows the basic mechanism, but in real economies, other sectors like government and foreign trade add more complexity. Still, this two-sector view is a great foundation for understanding the basics of income flow. Anybody who tries to stop the flow of economic activity ends up harming themselves over time. That's because in a circular flow, everything is interconnected and constantly moving. What starts from one variable, like households spending money, eventually comes back to them in different forms. For example, the money households pay for goods and services doesn't just disappear. It flows back as factor incomes, wages, rent, interest, and profits. This continuous cycle is what keeps the economy functioning smoothly. The significance of the circular flow model is that it helps us understand these relationships clearly. It shows us how money and resources circulate through different sectors, emphasizing the importance of maintaining this flow for economic stability and growth. When we grasp this model, we see how every part depends on the others, reinforcing the overall theme that a healthy economy relies on the smooth movement of income and expenditure. All right, so as we look at slide 23, we're focusing on the flow of payments within a three-sector economy. First, we see that taxes are paid by households and firms to the government. This is crucial because taxes fund public services and government operations. Then, the government uses part of this revenue to pay salaries to government employees, which helps sustain public sector services. Next, we have payments for goods and services, or G&S, where households and firms spend money on various products. Households make payments to firms when they buy goods and services, and similarly, firms also purchase inputs from other firms. These exchanges are the core of economic activity. Finally, note that the flow of income and payments between these sectors creates a circular flow, which is fundamental to understanding how an economy functions. It highlights the interconnectedness of households, firms, and government, and how money continuously moves through these sectors to keep the economy running smoothly. This interconnected flow is key to grasping the overall picture of the three-sector economy. Everyone's expenditure is someone else's receipt. Every transaction must have two sides. This simple idea highlights a fundamental truth in economics. For every buyer, there's a seller, and vice versa. It means that when we spend money, it becomes income for someone else, creating a flow that links all parts of the economy together. This interconnectedness is what makes the economy a system of exchanges, where each transaction plays a role in the bigger picture. Understanding this helps us see how changes in spending or saving can ripple through the entire economy, affecting growth, employment, and stability. So, as we look at the components of the macroeconomy, keep in mind that every dollar spent or earned is part of this continuous cycle. It's this cycle that drives economic activity and helps us understand the overall health of a nation.